Hi everyone, so today I'm going to take you through my pregnancy with Riley. As I go through, I'll just insert some photos here and there. I found out I was pregnant when I was 4 weeks and 1 day. It wasn't long before I was starting to feel sick and I had nausea and vomiting. I probably had that up until I was about 17 or 18 weeks. At 10 weeks gestation, sorry, I've just got some notes on my phone that I'm just going to look down at occasionally. So at 10 weeks gestation, I had my first appointment with the midwife. When I went to the appointment, they asked just the general questions. One of my sisters has an intellectual disability, so the genetics team wanted to test my genetics to see if I had any genes that could possibly be passed down to a baby. And they would be born like my sister was. So they tested my genes and everything was fine, so on that part. I had a 12-week scan, and at the 12-week scan I was really low risk for Down syndrome and trisomy. At 15 weeks I saw a doctor in regards to my asthma, and they just assessed what my asthma was like, and I could trial having less of my preventer and then see if I could go along with that. So I trialled that and I couldn't, so I just went back to the regular dose that I was on, so that was fine. I saw the midwife again at 19 weeks. And at 19 weeks I had already had the scan, like the one that they have around that time, 19-week scan. And before the midwife really looked at the results of that scan, she discussed the possibility of me having to have another scan at around 30 weeks to check the growth of the baby. So if she had any concerns about the baby's growth because of my asthma, so people with asthma have a chance of having a lower birth weight baby. So if she had any concerns about the weight of the baby, then there would be another scan at 30 weeks. So following on into that 19-week appointment with my midwife, she checked the results of my 19-week scan, and there was a couple of things wrong. So they found something wrong with the cord insertion, but they weren't sure exactly what it was, and there was something wrong with the kidneys, but they couldn't tell what that was either. And at 19 weeks, she basically said these things usually sort themselves out, so it's really nothing to worry about. So I wasn't worried, my husband wasn't worried, we really didn't give it any further thought after that. Also around 19 weeks I started to feel kicks, so I could feel movement from then on, which was really nice as well. At 28 weeks I had a glucose test for, what do they call it, diabetes. Gestational diabetes. Everything was fine. Gestational diabetes wasn't a risk. At about 31 weeks I had the scan that you're supposed to have at 30 weeks, so it was just a little bit late. We came to an appointment, it was late on a Friday afternoon. My husband and I we went to the hospital for this scan. During the scan there was a lady that was doing the ultrasound. After a while she said she's just going to go get someone else to come and have a look. And then someone else came in to have a look at this, have a look at the ultrasound, and then that person called another person to come in and have a look at the ultrasound, and then that person called another person to come in to look at the ultrasound. So and finally, after a couple of minutes of talking sort of between themselves, mumbling a bit, they said to us that there was something wrong with the baby. They wanted us to talk to a neonatologist to discuss with the neonatologist what was wrong with the baby and what the outcome could be because of that. So we waited at the hospital for hours. It was Friday afternoon, everybody had gone home, all of the doctors. One of them just happened to be coming in to see someone else to, I guess, be called in, and he was coming to talk to us as well. What he said was that the baby, our baby, his kidneys were really enlarged. They were at least 5 times the size that they were supposed to be. Well, one of them was, and the other one was a little bit enlarged. He said that there was part of his organs on the outside of his body, and he also had enlarged ventricles in his brain. So he said Usually when there's 3 things or more wrong with a baby, there's usually a genetic reason for it. So it's likely that the baby will have a physical disability and or a intellectual disability. Because of the enlarged ventricles, the baby could have a learning delay as well. It was pretty heartbreaking at the time. I think we went home, and for the next 2 nights, every time I would wake up through the night, I would wake up and just cry, and my husband would wake up and we would just play games on our phones together until I was tired enough that I could go back to sleep. We had scans all the time after that so that they could check the progress of the baby. After that scan, we decided to have an amniocentesis. So I think we had the amniocentesis probably when I was about 33 weeks, and that came back clear. A couple of weeks in, after having lots of scans and seeing the obstetrician regularly, she said that she thinks whatever they can see is wrong with the baby, she thinks that there's definitely more. She discussed with us the possibility of having an MRI. If the baby had parts of his brain that were missing or malformed, then it was going to be very likely that the baby would be born not being able to breathe. So we needed to decide, if we got that information from the MRI, we needed to decide whether we wanted them to resuscitate the baby. So we didn't have any information yet. We still needed to have the MRI to find out that. So we had the MRI. I had to fast for about 4 or 5 hours in the morning so that the baby had very little movement, and they did an MRI of the baby while he was still in my tummy. The MRI showed that everything was okay. It was a huge relief that we didn't have to think about, whether we were going to have to make that decision, and that he was most likely going to be able to breathe when he was born on his own. That was really nice to hear at that stage, when we had only had bad news. At this stage, after we'd had the amniocentesis, had the MRI and multiple scans, we were starting to prepare for the birth. We needed to come to the decision as to whether we wanted to try to have a natural birth or have a cesarean. After multiple scans, his abdomen was really far ahead in size. So his abdomen was measuring 6 weeks ahead. They were worried that he would get stuck in the birth canal, so he would be stuck with his head on the outside and his abdomen on the inside. And also with parts of his organs, which they could not tell what exactly it was at that time, so they couldn't tell what part of his organs were on the outside of his body. They just knew that some organs were on the outside of his body. So with that and his abdomen measuring 6 weeks in front of where he was, and us being booked in for around 38.5 weeks, that means that his abdomen would be measuring the size of, like a 44-week baby. So really quite big. And they said if this was my 2nd, 3rd, 4th child, I may have a chance of being able to have a natural birth, but because it was the first, he was a high risk of being stuck. So my husband and I made the decision to have a cesarean. We were thinking of the safety of Riley and the safety of me. So I had a cesarean at 38 weeks and 5 days, and yeah, I'm going to tell you all about that in another video. I'm going to do a video on Riley's birth and what happened for the 3 weeks after birth, because he was in hospital that whole time. Thanks for watching. If you want to follow our journey, feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.